The topic for today is photosynthesis, and it's quite a big topic for GCSE biology. Now, usually when we talk about photosynthesis, we relate it to a plant that might look a little something like this. But what you must also realize is and remember is that it's not only plants on land, but it's also plants in water. This is some pondweed over here, and this carries out photosynthesis as well. And I've just drawn this diagram down here because you may have done an experiment or seen an experiment where you take pondweed and you look at the oxygen bubbles that come off it. And the final organism we actually have that we don't often mention but also carries out photosynthesis is what we call algae. And algae, often single-celled but can be multicellular, but algae is often found in water as well. So all these kinds of living things carry out photosynthesis, and you need to be able to describe exactly how they do that. So the first thing is, very, very important, you must remember the formula, the word equation for photosynthesis, and it goes like this. We have carbon dioxide plus water will give you glucose and oxygen. Now the reason I wanted to write that out is because I wanted you to follow it very carefully. This is the key to understanding and remembering photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide and water is recombined by a chemical reaction to form glucose and oxygen. There is one more thing you need for this as well, and that is light energy. And this usually comes from the sun. Doesn't have to be from the sun, but often comes from the sun. And one more label that might be added to this diagram is this idea of chlorophyll. This is an important keyword for you to remember. And chlorophyll is found in plant cells, and here's a cell that I'm using quite often. But this is a cell taken from a plant, and inside that plant we have these structures called chloroplasts, and those are these little green blobs that I've drawn there. And inside these chloroplasts is this substance called chlorophyll, and the job of the chlorophyll is to absorb that light energy, so that energy can be used to convert convert carbon dioxide and water into glucose and oxygen. Okay, so this is a key and important equation or formula for you to know. It's worth spending a minute or two just memorizing that and making sure it's fixed in your mind, because once you've done that, you can then go on to describe the next part, and that is to say how the plant is actually supplied with these substances. We've got carbon dioxide over here, and this is actually found in the air, and it goes from the air into the leaf. Usually for most plants it goes in from the underside, but not always. But carbon dioxide goes from the air into the leaf directly. We've got water which comes up through the soil, from the soil through the stem and into the leaf like so. Or if I was to draw on this diagram, you can see it going up the stem and to the leaves. And then we have glucose, which is made in the plant. Let's just change colour for that. So glucose, which is actually created by this process of photosynthesis. Then we have oxygen, which is actually a waste product, and that comes out from the leaf and goes into the air. Or if it's a water plant, it goes into the water as little bubbles of gas. Okay, so you can see that if you can remember this equation or formula here, it's very easy to relate it to a picture of a plant and show how these key substances either get in or get out of the plant. Okay, so that's basically the process of photosynthesis. We have light energy, which provides the energy needed to convert carbon dioxide and water into glucose, and a byproduct or a waste product is oxygen. Now, another thing that you need to be aware of is that the speed of photosynthesis or the rate of photosynthesis can be limited, and they are limited by three conditions in the environment. The first one might be the most obvious one, and that's light or light intensity. Intensity just means the strength of light. If there is not enough light, the rate of photosynthesis will be limited, it will be slowed down. The other thing is the amount of carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide concentration in the air, and the last one is temperature. If the temperature is too low, the enzymes that are used in photosynthesis to drive the process won't work quickly enough, and it will then limit the rate of photosynthesis. We call these things, these conditions, limiting factors, because if there is not enough of 1, 2, or 3 of these, then that's going to limit the rate of photosynthesis. I'm going to look at that in more detail in a separate video. The final thing I want to look at is what the use of glucose is in the plant, and this is quite important for you to know and remember. So the first one over here we have is that glucose that's produced in the photosynthesis, so let's just write that here. Glucose that's produced in photosynthesis can be converted into a substance called starch. So glucose is a single molecule. I'm going to draw it accurately. That looks like this. It can be drawn as a hexagonal shape, but when it's converted into starch, it's made into long chains. Not going to spend ages on that, but it's converted into long chains and stored away in the leaf. So starch is how the glucose is stored, and it's very useful because it can be tightly packed up and put away, and then used later on when it's required. Second use of glucose is respiration, and respiration provides energy, and this is energy that can be used for the various things the plant needs to do. The third thing that we need to look at is a substance called cellulose. Cellulose makes up cell walls. So when we talk about the cell wall of a plant, and let's use this diagram again. The cell wall is the outside part of the plant here, and it's made of a substance called cellulose, and that comes from the glucose made in photosynthesis. Another use is to produce fats and oils, and these fats and oils are produced and stored away in the plant. And the final one that you need to know is to make protein. Proteins are made from glucose, but they also require another element called nitrogen, and without nitrogen the plant can't make protein. So it requires the glucose plus nitrogen, and the nitrogen comes from the soil. It's actually found in a type of substance called nitrate, but that's the final use of glucose in the plant. Add it to nitrogen or nitrate and produce proteins. So that's it for photosynthesis, an overview, and in the next video we're going to look at limiting factors in more detail.